It is with both immense admiration and deep sadness that I present Lindiwe Mabuza for the award of an honorary doctorate. With sadness because, as you have heard, the award is to be conferred posthumously. She died in December last year. With admiration because she was a remarkable, multifaceted woman with diverse interests and involvements in writing, teaching, political activism, government service, partaken across 4 continents: Africa, Asia, Europe, and America. Her career all the more remarkable given her difficult start in life. Born in Newcastle in KZN, her father a truck driver, her mother a domestic worker, growing up in poverty, having no shoes, and not really worrying about it until seeing others wearing them. How often do we hear how a grandmother has played such an important role in a child's upbringing? This very much the case with Lindiwe Mabuza, once saying that she could always recall the warmth and many sayings that my grandmother used to have. A grandmother who prized education, who took in children off the streets and tutored them, her house often full of children, reading by the light of kerosene lamps, all hours of the day and night. This early emphasis on education paid off for young Lindiwe. It was at high school in Soweto that she developed her love for literature, discovering how it enabled her to connect with people from different places and eras. There followed, over a number of years, further education at various institutions, a BA degree at what would become the University of Lesotho, a postgraduate degree in English from Stanford University in California, and another in American Studies from the University of Minnesota, where she would soon join the academic staff. And at Minnesota, becoming involved in the Way Community Project, the aim of which was to utilize education as a way of keeping children off the streets and out of trouble during the summer months. Her grandmother's influence surely evident here. Involvement in this project, bringing out her gift for teaching, finding that the children did not enthuse over traditional literature, being much more responsive when she got them into creative writing. This in turn prompting her to start writing herself. So began a literary career, but a career not purely literary, as she was too a political activist. In her own words, born into the struggle. Later gaining inspiration from the civil rights movement in the US, joining the ANC in 1975 while in the US, coming to see how poetry could serve as a part of the whole arsenal of weaponry to be used against apartheid, and serving as chairperson of the ANC Cultural Committee from 1977 to 1979. This political activism propelled her into various key positions. In 1979, assigned by Oliver Tambo to serve as the ANC's chief representative in Scandinavia, based in Sweden, there mobilizing support and raising funds for the ANC, promoting the campaign for sanctions against South Africa. Such was her success that she became a target for apartheid agents, managing to escape a bomb attack on the ANC's offices in Sweden in 1986. Sooner after this, being transferred to the US, again serving as the ANC's chief representative in the country, based in Washington. There working with anti-apartheid activists and organizing rallies and boycotts. From the outset, Lindiwe Mabuza brought her feminism into the ANC, becoming in 1979 the editor of the ANC Women's League publication, Voice of Women, providing a platform for women to express themselves, and as a broadcaster for the ANC's Radio Freedom, highlighting the plight of women. Her feminism also permeates her literary work. In 1978, co-editing an anthology of poems by ANC women titled Malebongwe, and editing a collection of stories by Black South African women writers in exile, published in 1989. Lindiwe Mabuza started writing her own poetry in 1976, at the time of the Soweto uprising, going on to publish 4 volumes of poetry between 1991 and 2008, maintaining a resolute belief in the power of poetry. It's better than a 3-hour speech, she once said. It gets to the heart of the matter. It moves people. Just as she encouraged women to write about their experiences, so did she do the same for children, inspiring them to express themselves in creative writing, serving as a patron of Dramatic Need, a UK-based charity that promotes the creative arts for children, also acting as chairperson of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund UK. It is also already evident that Lindiwe Mabuza was a cosmopolitan figure, active in Scandinavia and the US during the apartheid years, and in the post-apartheid era, serving as an ambassador in a number of countries. First in Germany from 1995, where she was much admired as a strong human rights advocate, then a stint in Malaysia and the Philippines, before serving as South African High Commissioner in the UK for 8 years from 2001. Being recognized by the Diplomat magazine in 2003 as the Diplomat of the Year from Africa for her commitment to strengthening ties between the UK and South Africa. There have been other awards. In 1997, the Yari Yari Award from New York University for her contributions to human rights and literature. In 2014, the National Order of Ikhamanga, South Africa's highest honor. In 2017, the Lifetime Achievement Award for Arts Advocacy, bestowed by the Arts and Culture Trust of South Africa. Today we remember and honor Lindiwe Mabuza. Remember her as a supremely gifted woman who served in so many different roles, combining her political and cultural activism in the struggle against apartheid, promoting literature as a medium of creative expression for marginalized women and children, herself excelling as a poet and literary figure, and for decades championing South Africa's interests across 4 continents as an activist and ambassador. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor to request you to confer posthumously on Lindiwe Mabuza the degree of Doctor of Literature, honoris causa, to be received by her daughter, Thembi Msibi.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Literature, honoris causa, posthumously.
Thank you, Orator. Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, members of the University Council, Senate herein present, esteemed graduates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Congratulations to the graduates. Your hard work has paid off. Thank you to your families and loved ones for the support, for without them, you may not have made it thus far. It gives me great honor to accept this award on behalf of my late mother, Lindiwe Mabuza. As much as I am sad that she's no longer with us to personally receive it, my family and I are heartened that she received the letter informing of the award shortly before her death. I can confirm that she was elated and at the same time humbled by the honor. Thank you. My mother would have been particularly overjoyed to receive this honorary degree in the same graduation convocation with Lord Peter Hain and Professor Makhosazana Xaba. She considered them her bosom friends and dearly beloved comrades, whom she held in high regard. I imagine that she is not only smiling down at us from above, but is also doing a little dance with the angels. As my daughter remarked, this is an apt award. This is not to say that all the other awards and honorary degrees in the arts, culture, and diplomatic fields were not deserved and appreciated. But this is because literature was a first love that she returned to time and time again. During her retirement, from 2009 until her death in December 2021, she was writing like a person possessed. It was as though she was bursting with stories that had to be told. In 2018, she edited Conversations with Uncle O.R., and also Tambule Nyoka. In 2020, she began editing a tribute to Sweden. Last year, she began writing a libretto in Zulu for the KZN Philharmonic Orchestra. Around the same period, she began work with Professor Makhosazana, now Dr. Makhosazana Xaba, on an anthology of her poetry. She was also in the midst of writing an autobiography with the assistance of her niece, Lindiwe Sangweni Sido. All these projects are at various stages of completion. Fortunately, some of these will be completed in the near future. She ended as she had begun, in literature. She lived her life in self-expression through literature. If she was angry at political injustices, she would write poetry. If she loved something dearly, she would express that love in poetry. Her love of literature gave her her doorway to life. She began her teaching career in literature in Swaziland, where she taught both Zulu and English. She related one of her experiences as a new teacher. She used to read stories to her students in class. In one of the stories she read, the protagonist was a criminal. One of her mature male students loved this particular story and often requested that she read it again to the class. She willingly obliged and must have read the story at least 3 times. She was chuffed that her ploy of getting her students to read was working. Little did she know that the said student's interest was not in reading, but in the criminal enterprise narrated in the story. She found this out when he was arrested for committing a copycat crime. From then forth, she was a little more discerning in the stories she shared and read to her students. My mother firmly believed that each of us had a story or stories to share. I would watch in awe as she teased stories and poems out of acquaintances and relatives by making them believe that it was worth sharing through writing. This is how Malibongo was born. She once said, "We don't open doors for those who come after us. We do so for those standing right next to us, still trying to decide what to do with their lives. Because if we jump, they might too." She not only lived that ethos when engaging with gender issues and in the diplomatic corps, but in writing as well, through making everyone that crossed her path believe that their voice mattered. Sadly, I was the only failure in this regard. She tried multiple times to pry stories out of me. Little did she know that I had taken a decision in my youth not to venture into writing. After years of analyzing her poems and consuming her many stories, I felt all edited out. In my 20s, I asked her why she had given me the task of analyzing her poems from the tender age of 12. Her answer was simple but profound. She said, "If a child could understand a poetry, then anybody could." That stayed with me and has remained my objective whenever I pen something. She never limited herself, and thus, in turn us, in what she read, in genre and style. From a young age, I could pick up any book without fear of being told that it was not age appropriate. I read her D.H. Lawrence books in my teens. Some were beyond my comprehension at the time, and in later years, I revisited them. At times, I unknowingly picked up books she was currently using to teach a course. Much later, when we were reminiscing about this period of our lives, she shared her frustration at my neck for picking up a book she was then teaching. When I asked her why she did not simply request the book back, she explained that she feared she might put me off reading. I recall in the early 2000s an episode that illustrated a wide range in reading. The latest book in the Harry Potter series was due to be released. This coincided with my children visiting my mother in Malaysia. I had planned to surprise my son, who was an avid fan of Harry Potter, with a copy of the latest installment in the series on his return, which was due to be released in South Africa during his absence. This was until I discovered that I would have to camp all night outside the bookstore to possibly get my hands on a copy. That put paid to that plan. I consoled myself with the thought that I would get him a copy when the second batch of books arrived in the country. To my pleasant surprise, when he came back from the visit, he had a copy of the book all read. I inquired how and where he got it. He simply replied, "Coco was reading it. When she realized Harry Potter is my favorite, she gave it to me." I couldn't help but smile because, as always, she never failed to surprise me. In later years, her enjoyment of the books I had either bought for her or recommended gave me immeasurable pleasure. I was even more honored when the roles were reversed and she was now the one taking a book that I was still reading. I was in awe as she fearlessly ventured into writing a children's book. Her dreams had no limits. On the launch of South African Animals by Lindiwe Mabuza, she shared with me her plans to write a book on pigeon cats. Until then, I was ignorant of the varied species of domestic cats that existed. I thought all domestic cats were the same. A cat is a cat. As per norm, when my mother shared her plans, it was a whole day's lesson on all the various breeds and their habits. She was a teacher every day of her life. It was therefore no surprise that when she was appointed into the diplomatic corps, she infused teaching into diplomacy. Instead of merely talking at people about the plight of Black South Africans under apartheid, she used the opportunity to teach the world about the people of South Africa, our culture, and our everyday experiences and hardships born because of the system. She strongly believed in the sensibility of ordinary people and their innate desire for good. She excelled in converting young people into ambassadors for South Africa and involving them in the struggle against apartheid. To her, there was nothing extraordinary in this approach. All she had done was reach back to what she knew best, being a teacher. That was the birth of cultural diplomacy, long before the term was coined. On her approach of using poetry in the struggle, she said, "Poetry is part of the struggle. You recite a poem. It is better than a 3-hour speech. It gets to the heart of the matter. It moves people." She was a woman that we should honor her love of life that she expressed through the creativeness of literature. It is therefore suitable to conclude with one of her poems, titled Footprints and Fingerprints. She wrote it on the eve of our independence, April 1994, in honor of O.R. Tambo, which I now find is a befitting poem to honor her. We now know with acute finality that the profuse blood of your birth, now and forever, enriches this entire land, this country where your umbilical cord lives. Oh, don't we also know, in the marrow of our bones, that at the appointed time, it beckoned you back home from your unparalleled journey to receive your last rites, so that the deaf, the blind, the mute can now consciously know and see and speak of the hunger, the tears for land rights. We have also seen that the cord was never broken, then and now and forever. The link will never break. As each day you grow and fuse with Ulundi, the Nile, the Ganges, one with the sky, rain, wind, heat, now in radiant shades, arched to launch every one of our dreams, pregnant with freedom seeds. Wherever your footprints challenge the sterile smoothness of sand, the humdrum drab of twisted logic, your bold footprints will never be erased with wind or rain or claw or other giant feet, but will remain tenacious, deep in the core of marble. And wherever around the world, your fingerprints confirm with will and with the thrill of prolific impala horns calling, blowing through the thundering smoke of Niagara, Musiwatunya, in Zambia and Zimbabwe, contrasting, harmonizing with steady ripples of Scandinavian harps, with such fiery hearts and short soothing reverberations to your call, till banjos, accordions, drums and more drums explode in ecstatic crescendo deep in the heart of Dixieland. As your conquering trail blazes the wild, wild west, rolls across Appalachian heights, bursting delta waters into the halls of Congress, till the White House Reagan bull beaten drops limp on its side. We now know with acute finality how you entitle millions to our peacock bodies. For you, just this once, let us prance a bit. Let the unsung songs, your life rights, bubble or sprout in each and all. Let them raise our explosive blooms so that the universe can see our new bodies, perched on every hill or mount, straighten, then spread this extravaganza. Please allow millions the right, just this one time, to defy your modesty and forever salute the maestro from every mountaintop with the most spectacular swish and swash ever choreographed.